The question that we need to ask ourselves, what is the magnitude of emission reductions that developed countries should undertake on a holistic perspective from now until 2050? Those targets need to be defined. And that requires equally an answer to on what degrees Celsius we need to agree in order to resolve these issues. I would like to say on record there are two conflicting views concerning this. Developed countries, as you know very well, have not put any serious numbers on their pledges. Take the United States, which says it will do 17% by 2005. 17% by 2005, in simple arithmetic, is 4% on 1990 level. And that's the trouble. Then I think trying to spin this as what is going to be done in forestry and what is going to be done in this section is not the issue. The central issue you have to start from is that the lack of ambition of the level of reductions. Without that, we are not moving forward. We are not achieving anything. Now, the issue of the peaking year is an interesting one because it assumes effectively is that developing countries will have to stop growing. The consequences of that ceiling is to force developing countries to stop their economic development. In view of the fact that not only do developed countries refuse to take aggressive ambitions, they refuse to transfer technology, they refuse to transfer, to finance developing countries, the two important conditions for developing countries to take mitigation actions. Because if you are going to develop, you will emit. Unless you have renewable energies and carbon neutral or less carbon polluting solutions by way of advanced technology. That is the issue. $10 billion will not buy developing countries' citizens enough coffins. It's the thing you bury people. So what are we doing? Surely these governments have some of the best brains, advisors, economists, statisticians. Let me just tell you this. How long would it take Tim Geithner to raise $10 billion from Wall Street if he decides to go and open a private equity firm? A few calls. This is the truth about this package. Now, this brings in an interesting perspective, the questions about whether we will trade emissions for monies. Actually, that cannot do the trick. You have to reduce the emissions. There is not enough money that will buy you out of that. We have to cut the emissions, and we have to cut radically. And this is a very simple. Let me even put it in much starker form. Nobody will trade his health for money. I would not, if for example, somebody is going to give me $1 trillion in exchange of having cancer, would a common person, an ordinary person, accept that type of damage to his health for any amount of money? I doubt. The 1.5 degrees and the Africa situation. Now, there are two facts that we need to state here. The African negotiating group never accepted the 2 degrees Celsius. That's fact number one. Go to all the submissions of the parties from the beginning of the negotiations until today. Point number two. The 2 degrees Celsius has no scientific basis. It was one of the options that the IPCC put forward in their scenarios. And I want you to look at what many independent scientists have done and have said about this. The question that brought, or the reason why 2 degrees gained quote-unquote momentum, it was because the G8 thought this would be the most feasible way of resolving the issue of the climate change. But in doing that, they never asked themselves, what is the cost? What is the human cost of taking that route? Arguably, the disappearance of many island states, of many African states. 2 degrees means for Africa a 3.5 degrees. The global mean of 2 degrees means 3.5 degrees for Africa. 2 degrees is certain death for Africa. Those are the facts. And let me refer you, since you have asked a question, to the scientific papers related to this. Page 435 of the contributions of Working Group 2 to IPCC 4th Assessment Report. Page 866, page 867 of the contributions of Working Group 1 of IPCC Fourth Assessment Report, Chapter 11, Regional Climate Projections. Page 435 of the first paper I have referred you to. That will give you what are the implications of the 2 degrees to the different regional groups. And that's why it is our view a just and equitable deal must save the lives of all these nations. Otherwise, it's damnation for them. And it's something that world leaders need to think about very carefully. There is no moral integrity, nor objectivity, nor sense of leadership of condemning millions of people, not to some suffering, but absolute devastation. This brings us to President Obama. I beg to differ with you on whether President Obama is coming to simply sign a deal. He is probably coming to persuade those who are not convinced of the Danish proposal. So what we need to ask of the President is the following. Does the 2 degrees expose over 100 countries to massive suffering and devastation or not? If that's the case, on what definition of leadership would the leader of the most developed, the most industrialized nation sign to that? Would he accept that the cousins and the extended family, of his own daughters, be thrown and destroyed only to preserve the interests of the few? We need to ask of him, as the most advanced industrialized nation, is 4% cut enough? And is it true really that it's the Congress that is refusing to act? Or is it lack of ambition and the pressures of a laggard industrial complex? We need to ask of him. He provided trillions of dollars to save Wall Street. Are the children of the world not deserving of help to save their lives? We need to ask him, when he takes his Nobel Prize, What is his justification for inaction? If he battles for the health care, why doesn't he battle for the climate change? I think those are the questions that we need to hear answers from before we make any judgment.